I grew up in the 60s, and the American space program was kind of in full swing, kind of moon race. And of course, I was building models of these things, but also very much tuning into it. For me, I was kind of looking forward to the future. I was always fascinated with the future and the kind of cool things we're going to hear, like jetpacks and atomic-powered cars and space colonies. These were things that I just kind of expected to happen. I remember when I was about 7 years old, my parents took me to go see 2001: A Space Odyssey, which totally blew me away. I mean, it was my favorite movie of all time. And seeing it at 7 years old was really kind of a life-changing experience. First of all, it had these kind of really cool, enigmatic aliens, of course, but it also had this kind of homicidal computer, which was my first introduction to the idea of artificial intelligence. And it was kind of interesting thinking about computers back then. When people saw the movie 2001, they took it for granted this computer could have natural conversations, could even read lips. But the fact that it would beat a guy at chess, nobody believed. People walked out of the theaters, there's no way it would beat a guy at chess. So it actually kind of redefined what we think of as intelligence. Now we take it for granted that a computer can play grandmaster level chess, but still can't have a normal conversation with us, because we realize that the really hard parts of our intelligence aren't what we thought it was. Also, the future was represented in 2001 in an interesting way. Basically, the idea that after we landed on the moon, we would build these giant moon colonies, and we'd be living and working on the moon by the year 2001. And as a kid, I didn't realize the fact that adults didn't know everything. So I kind of assumed that this was going to be the future, that this is the future I was going to basically be living in. And to see it not unfold, not play out the way it did, was very interesting to me. I kind of came to realize that the future and history and all these things are very chaotic, very unpredictable, in really interesting ways, which kind of drove my interest in a lot of other subjects. Now, when we think about aliens, it's interesting when the subject of aliens is such a wide variety of different things. But at the end of the day, it seems like, for the most part, they represent aspects of humanity. We have kind of very nice, friendly aliens. We have very mean, scary aliens. We have very smart aliens. We have very stupid aliens. So in some sense, they're kind of triangulating all these different things about humanity, in this kind of abstract concept. Robots, in a similar way, really are trying to replicate human abilities, human form, etc., in machines. If you ever actually try to build a robotic hand, you start realizing what a wonderful thing the human hand is. I mean, it's only when you reverse engineer this thing and try to recreate it that you start to realize, kind of the things that we take for granted about being humans. So really, robots and aliens together triangulate humanity for me. They're ways of us investigating what it means for us to be human. I really was very interested in robotics. In fact, I bought my first computer, my Apple II, to connect to robots that I was building when I was a teenager. And that's when I taught myself to program. I got very interested in first computer games and stuff. Still to this day, I'm kind of building robots. I have a little shop in Berkeley, and we build robots for a variety of different things. Some of the competitions like BattleBots and Robot Wars, but others kind of social experiments that you kind of take out in the world. Spore was really originally inspired by the SETI program, which is basically the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, looking out in the universe, and seeing is there anybody else out there. One of the fundamental concepts of the SETI program is what's known as Drake's equation. And this is basically, how many stars are out there, how many planets will those stars have, how many of those planets might have life, how much of those would become intelligent, etc. What interested me about Drake's equation, which kind of later became known as the subject of astrobiology, is that when you look at all the terms in Drake's equation, really all the different sciences are embedded in this question. A very simple question that any 6-year-old could understand. Is there somebody else out there? But yet it basically encodes concepts of physics, chemistry, biology, etc. So all of the sciences really are collapsed in this one simple question, from very small to very large as well. So looking at the universe, in kind of the breadth of it and scale. There's another kind of very influential film as I was growing up called The Powers of 10. And you might have seen this, where basically they zoom into some guy's hand all the way down to the atomic level, and they zoom all the way back out to the galactic level. And I always thought that was a really interesting kind of viewpoint on the entire universe. And so really these ideas kind of came together towards the idea of what Spore became. Originally, my first conception was called the Sim Everything. And in fact, when I make a game, one of the first things I do is I design a box for it so I can show it to the team. And this is the original box I designed for Sim Everything. And I do the whole back of the box and the bullet points. For me, it's a compressed representation of what this game wants to be. And I was even trying to guess at the system requirements for what this game would take. And luckily we were able to build this with slightly lower system requirements than I had here. But a lot of this is really kind of embed the concept in a box, show it to my team members, basically a compressed version of my vision that we can then start building the game from. Now there's a lot of research behind Spore in a lot of different areas of science. again, we were trying to cover all these different sciences in a very concise way. There was also a lot of fiction involved. I actually kind of went back to my favorite classic science fiction, and I tried to think about, what kind of gameplay, is inherent in that storyline. Now, a lot of game design really is about deconstruction. And really, I think the relationship between storytelling and games is interesting because I find the best stories by far are ones that you can kind of take apart into their component pieces. It might be characters, it might be weird technologies or verbs or settings. And then you recombine them into play experiences. And so the very best stories are ones that I can kind of deconstruct and then have, play experiences built around those components. On the other hand, the very best play experiences I find to be generative. And as I play, I inherently am kind of building up and telling my own story as a player. And so I think that there's this kind of symbiotic between play and story, where play is inherently deconstructive and play is inherently generative. And both of these, they're really a form of model building. How do we understand the world around us kind of to a higher level and apply those lessons? Now, looking at my favorite science fiction, if I deconstruct it, all the different verbs and abilities that I've seen in all these films, you find kind of recurring themes, things like alien abduction, hyperspace, being able to go very fast, having powerful weapons and weaker weapons. The idea of terraforming entire worlds, the idea of kind of controlling the mental state of large groups of people, fighting giant monsters, of course, alien manipulation or manipulating alternative cultures, crop circles, invisibility, shields, all these things, basically are the staple of science fiction that we try to pull out and deconstruct. And in Spore, give the players these basic tools to recombine to kind of create their own kind of epic space opera. Now, as kids, we're kind of growing up, in our early stages when we're young, we inherently believe that we're creative, and we love drawing things and making things and designing things. It's kind of taught out of us, though, as we get older. But we found in games that whenever we give the players a role to be creative and to make cool things with the right tools, they love doing it, and they do amazing jobs at it. In fact, the power of collective effort, when you can get a million people kind of doing something kind of creative, constructive, it's astounding. I mean, it's always just kind of mind-blowing to see what a million creative people can do when they're pulling in the same direction. Now, we noticed that with the tools that we had before, we always had this characteristic curve where we get a lot of stuff that, to be honest, was pretty crappy. We get, some of it that was pretty good, a little bit that was really good, and some of it that's great, but a very, very tiny amount. So there's this kind of characteristic curve. Now, what we really wanted to do, looking back at the tools and the leverage we were giving the players, was how do we pull this into the curve up? Because the stuff on this side, the area underneath this curve, represents a lot of value to other players. Now, if we can basically harvest the creativity of players on this end of the curve, we can use it to redistribute to other players as they're playing the game. We spent a lot of time studying, constructive systems outside the computer. And how would somebody approach something like the character creator in Spore? What kind of metaphors would they bring to it? Would they think of it as clay, as a rector set, as a potato head? And we ended up combining aspects of all these things into something that feels inherently familiar right when you come up to it, even if you've never seen it before. In some sense, what we wanted to do was teach the computer to replicate a lot of the internal processes that our art staff does. We had to teach the computer how to do texturing, animation, and modeling, so that as the players are manipulating this very simple system, this thing comes to life kind of underneath your mouse. So our character creator in Spore is, basically the result of kind of all this thinking and research. Now, in some sense, as a brand, I've been thinking of Spore as kind of this intersection between science and creativity. Because for me, science was always kind of this personal thing. It was stuff that I could make stuff that if I knew about science, I could actually use it to create cool new things. So inherently, science wants to be creative, constructive, and personal for me, not academic and removed.